All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Daniel Boone Area School District Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. It's August 14th, 2017, and it's 6:06 p.m. If we can stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we just finished up the Personnel Committee meeting, and we discussed a topic that's going to come up on this agenda in a slightly different form. We have no members of the public currently, and if we can just go around the table and everybody can state their name.
Dane O'Neil.
Connor Kurtz.
Melanie Hefner.
Rob Hurley.
Jenny Rexford.
Dane O'Neil.
All right, thank you to all of the administrators for being here tonight. Mrs. Bites is absent, and Mr. Rathgeb is not here yet either. First up on the agenda, Student Handbook. If the administrators who have handbooks that are up for approval at the end of the month by the full board could just go over some of the highlights or any of the changes, that would be appreciated. If we maybe just start with after.
The only change that was in addition to the MEC handbook was the EpiPen, the change in the EpiPen procedures. We keep EpiPens on hand in case there was an emergency, not with a child that has a designated allergy, but somebody who would be in crisis that we don't know, would have an anaphylactic reaction. So that was the only addition. Was parents have to sign off and say they don't want it, administer.
Okay. And this is the first year that we're doing this, or?
It's consistent with current legislation.
Okay.
So,
There was a change.
So the default position is that we can administer and they need to notify us if we can't?
Right.
Okay, so the default position, if we don't hear from them, we assume that we can.
Yeah, there was some tweaking to the legislation in regards to that. That's where they came from.
Sure.
So the Birdsboro handbook has the updates as needed, in addition to the cover page being updated to reflect this principle, and hopefully in council hall, I don't know if we'll have that. It might still say to be determined by the time you get it, but we will add a date when it's there.
Ours is the EpiPen, and we had two little things that we had changed from last year. The cost of physical change for athletics, and we turned in the handbook last year before we knew about Schoology, so we just updated that for homework checking. That's it.
Same thing, and online grading was in our past handbook, so we added that. We also added ESAP back.
And ESAP is?
Elementary Student Assistance Program.
Okay. And is that for, I thought it is, I'm thinking drug issues, but that's not what
It's
this
like
is.
the Bright Team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barriers to learning. It deals with in elementary. You're dealing with mostly mental health types of issues. There are precursors, certainly, in at-risk behaviors that we're trying to identify when you're getting upper elementary.
So we're a third year, and it wasn't in the handbook, so we didn't include that.
Okay.
Mostly refinement at the high school, drilling in on some policies, some dress code issues. Kids, and you'll see it if you look at it, it's highlighted in yellow just to draw attention to the families. That these are things that just have been tuned a little bit. So, for example, kids with strip clothing and shorts and changing the piece of their pockets hanging out, just kind of minutiae type things. Some things around discipline and 10-day suspension, given the weapons issue that we had, just to highlight that issue from last year. We also had the change from the extracurricular committee with the cost of activities and clubs, waiving fees for students who are in the curriculum, marching band, those pieces are highlighted in there. And as everybody else with the immunization type stuff, meningitis piece, the EpiPen piece.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm glad that you mentioned the immunization piece. Is the vaccination policy consistent throughout? Like, is it the same at all the age levels, all the grade levels, and?
So we follow Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines in regards to that, and that obviously, there is some new immunization requirements that we've been publicizing to parents since last spring. So the parents are well aware of that. We've we've actually, our principal for it recently, we've also sent out a recent correspondence in regards to that. So there is the one change in regards, not, and we'll certainly, I was going to mention tonight in executive session, but the one change, it was approximately 6 months after the time in which the parents, if they didn't have it before, we'd have to keep bothering them for 6 months. The exclusion time is now for like 5 days, so that's why we've been publicizing that. We're not unique in doing it. Every school district is dealing with this issue. It'll be interesting to see where we're at. And different buildings have different numbers of people who we're trying to track down in regards to that.
So you're saying that the exclusion time is 5 days now?
It's
So
5
if you're-
days, yes.
If you're 5 days past whatever the deadline is for providing the,
Yes, it's 5 days.
okay, and then what happens at that point?
Yeah, you
Does-
can't
Have to come back.
Okay.
Basically, they have to make a plan. There's things that the doctor has to fill out. They have to make a plan, with the doctors and things like
Okay.
that to get the kid back in school. So.
Okay, and then are there any circumstances under which we allow families to not?
Yes, there's religious exemptions, and under McKinney-Vento laws with homeless students, there are exemptions in regards to that.
Okay.
Do we have any?
Also foster care. That's another. There's some foster care exemptions to that. But those are really case by case. Usually the
Do
nurses
you
are
have any idea what sort of percentage of
As I was
the
gonna ask.
families here are asking for any sort of exemption? I'm just asking roughly. I'm not looking.
very, very small. Example, we'll have 15 homeless families that qualify under McKinney, 15, 20 homeless families that qualify.
But they're not necessarily
But
asking.
they're not
for
necessarily
exemptions.
asking for exemptions, so you're looking at a small percentage
Right.
of them also. Usually, their parents are still up to date on those type of laws for kids.
Right. Yeah.
So we think that the numbers are small enough that the baseline herd immunity threshold is not.
We're hoping. It remains to be seen. We're being
Right,
diligent.
no, I understand.
I'll give you. Melanie has 40 parents still that don't have theirs. I mean, they just sent voice blasts out to everyone of those 40 parents again to remind them. The high school has a significant number, I believe, in 12th grade. We're hoping,
216-year-old or above,
Yeah,
but
so-
they're coming in and we're on, and Bonnie's doing a great job tracking it down. But it's
What
be a
is-
compliance issue. It's not going to be an.
Yeah. Which vaccine is that? Is that a new vaccine or a new requirement?
It's a new requirement for 12th grade, yeah.
What is it?
It's a meningitis. vaccine.
Meningitis,
It's like the
okay.
second shot, I think. Yeah.
That they
shot.
usually
What's that?
do. What is the deadline?
Start of school.
Is the start of school? Okay.
And then plus 5 days.
Okay.
And we do provide them with information for what they can do if they're underinsured or not insured. So I have been I'm sure everybody has been providing them with the information as to what to do.
Okay.
If that's the case, they can still get them. So
Okay.
that shouldn't be a hindrance to them.
What the nurse is reporting back is that people have a hard time getting in now with their family practice because there's all this rush to come in. They
Yep.
can't get the shot. So we're going to run into some problems for sure. I mean, how much I don't know.
To administer a vaccine, must you be an MD, or can our nurses, are they licensed and qualified to vaccinate?
There's a whole sort of issues, including liability
Okay.
issues. in regards
So we don't want to
that.
become a
They
medical
don't wanna
practice.
do-
Okay.
Do reading, writing, math.
All right. Anything else on the handbooks? Just on cell phones, when do we allow? Is it only at the high school level that kids are allowed to have cell phones on their person, or at elementary? Okay.
We don't.
We-
Oh.
They have to keep them in their lockers.
Well, yeah, that's been.
And
Oh, right.
and turn it off.
Okay. So a second grader can't have an iPhone in their pocket. Okay.
They should,
Are we still liking?
Well, it doesn't matter if I like it or I don't like it. We inherited it. I
Well,
think
we can
trying to-
still-
Let me just say, I
Okay.
think trying to unring the bell would be a major issue. And that's something we want to have to take on and be really unified in how we address that. I think it flies in the face of the current technology program that we're letting bring your own device, and we have kids up to this point using their own data to do their own information searches. Now this year Scott has opened up the bandwidth, over the last 2 years, so students can use their own devices, but it goes through the filter. So all those are pieces of it. To me, and I know you and I debated this before, it's about teaching students the appropriateness of
Yeah.
when and where, as opposed to limiting it.
Right.
That's kind of where I think we are at the high school level.
This is just something that occurred to me. Now, thinking about every smartphone has a recording device in it. Are there any issues with students filming other students or
That has
recording?
happened, and there's been discipline on that, pretty intense discipline, and even filming a teacher. I mean,
Yeah.
are taking a picture of a teacher, and it's been discipline.
Okay.
One thing it's interesting, the dynamics of our students at the high school. We've been really blessed in that our kids come forward pretty quick with information, whether it was the threatening stuff that we went through last year, or a student taking a picture or posting it on a teacher. We get information readily at the high school, and it's actionable. And,
Good.
So we've been lucky that way. So, hopefully there hasn't been anything too crazy or extreme.
Yeah.
We're starting the school year, so let's see what happens.
For the record, not that you care probably, I completely agree with you about the unringing the bell thing. I think it's not a battle worth fighting if you don't think it's causing a great deal of if the current usage is creating a great deal of disruption. And I think it creates a enforcement problem too, right? Because now you've got, even if the policy is no phones in the classroom or whatever, now you got to get the teachers to buy in, and we all know that some are going to enforce it and some aren't, which makes enforcing it anywhere really difficult because it's hard to get
I think
full buy-in.
I think the conversation goes out to this also, that what are we preparing these kids for when they leave? More places when they go out are not restricting them, and they understand what they have to do in their workspaces, and that's what the classroom life is like. But when they're in the less structured time of lunch, study hall, that's their time to manage their time, and the expectations that they do that. And they've been pretty good about it. We haven't had any real substantive issues around it, so like I said, knock on wood, then we can take that path. But if there are, and the few that we've had, we've taken that disciplinary action, kind of, the word goes out, and that's the end.
Right.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Next up, this is one that Mrs. Bites requested that we discuss, called the SMILES program. I'm going to actually push this for a future meeting because she's not here, and we spent a good deal of time in the Personnel Committee meeting talking about ways we could supplement our teaching faculty so that these duty periods could be limited, or that we can have folks do some of these duties who are not necessarily way overqualified. So we're going to wait to talk about that. Next up is curriculum update.
Just try to give you a rough idea of where we're at in terms of curriculum writing and things of that nature. And first, I'm glad to have Michelle on board. She's already has been a wonderful help with everything. Where we are right now, we have a draft of the Spanish curriculum that we're working on for us at the high school. Right now, we are working through the Spanish curriculum and revising it to make sure it meets the standards before bringing it up to the school board itself for approval. But at least there's a draft form of that being finished right now. Going forward, as we're continuing
And those
to work,
standards are the ones that we discussed earlier this year.
yeah, the ICAD standards, and then also just making sure they're written with the higher level thinking skills involved, not just
Right.
lower level things. As we go through this, Michelle's done some good work with that already on that for us. The other thing we have going forward, we have the science curriculum at the high school. Last year we did the middle school. We now need to move up to the high school. We will work through that. And then the next piece after that, depending on it's all time permitting, sub permitting, and things of that nature. But we also want to work through our social studies K-12 and start that process as a school district. But I'm working with Michelle here. We're trying to work through these things. But I just wanted to give you guys an update so you have an idea what's going on.
Could you, in all these years, at least I've been involved, I should have a better understanding than I believe I do. We hear updates about curriculum all the time. Could you all just do me a favor, and specifically Rob, if you could start it off? When we decide we're going to rewrite middle school science curriculum, what happens from there? We convene a committee. Well, first, does the board decide we're going to write this, and is a committee convened, and then are the standards looked at? What does the process actually look like?
Yeah, what we're doing, we're gathering
As a
teachers,
reminder.
we're gathering data on what we currently do in the classroom and what our current practice is, and then we're looking at our current documents. Then we gather teachers together. We look at the academic standards.
When you say we, at this point, it's you, and it'll be Ms. Cimprio now, or
Yes.
Dr. Cimprio, excuse me, sorry. And then you bring in the staff.
We look at the standards, and then what we do is we rewrite the curriculum, and we choose appropriate resources that'll be appropriate for that curriculum. That's how we've done it historically. Certainly,
And it takes
we're
about a
always
year.
trying. It can take some time. There's a lot of variables that go into that, Connor. One of the things that we struggle with is you want to get as much teacher input as you can on it. However, there's problems with substitute teachers, which we have to balance out as a school district. Like, we don't like to leave classrooms uncovered and with substitutes in there all the time, and sometimes it turns into study halls. Number two, the problem, some of the problems with the summer is it gets more costly when you go to the summer. It costs $45 an hour or $40 an hour for a teacher. You start putting together 6 teachers for a couple of days, it starts to add up very quickly on our budget. So we're trying to balance all it's a fine line, and certainly we'll be working together to solve that.
Well, playing off of what we talked about in the personnel committee meeting, perhaps if we could find a way to open up these duty periods from, walking the halls and proctoring study halls and lunches, maybe that could be a time also that some curriculum work could happen.
Absolutely. There's all kinds of creative ways of doing things, and we have in the past actually we've written some curriculums using after school time, but it takes, again, it ends up stretching out over a longer period.
Yeah, I think that could be the organizing principle here for the district for the next few years, is maximizing the talent that we have available. And if we have strictures that are in place that are inhibiting progress in that regard, then maybe we should try to eliminate those strictures. Okay, but thank you for that review of how that process works.
Yeah, and like I said, and Michelle, we got her on board now, and that'll help with some of those things before we're trying to expedite some of this stuff.
Great. Anything on curriculum update? All right. Next up, your informational item, Act 339.
30 seconds of your time. In our next CNI meeting, I have our guidance department coming. They're going to talk to you about our guidance program in general. And there's been a little bit of a shift in the state in terms of career awareness, in terms of integrating that throughout the K-12 guidance programming and putting more emphasis on that. It's state-driven. However, during the presentation, it'll be a good time for you guys to talk to our guidance counselors about some of their other things. Obviously, if it's career-driven, we'll talk to you about that. They'll talk about the academic piece and how they support our academics, and also the counseling piece and how they're supporting both individual counseling, group counseling, and building-wide education for social-emotional barriers to learning. So they'll be here on our next CNI meeting, guys.
Do we have an estimate on how many folks are coming and how long this will take just for planning purposes?
Yeah, we're looking at least, I have 2 commitments. I have 2 so far that have committed to coming on that evening, 2 of the teachers. How long I'm expecting about a half hour to 45 minutes.
And is that including our discussion or just the presentation?
Just the presentation, so about a half hour to 45 minutes on it.
On just the presentation?
Yeah.
Is there a way?
I can tell them to kind of talk fast too.
Yeah, if we can maybe, I'd like to have more time for discussion.
Sure.
So maybe if the presentation could be sent to us in advance and we can have maybe like an executive presentation.
I think that's a
given.
good idea. I'd rather have you ask questions of that
Yeah.
because it'll give you a bigger picture of what actually guidance counselors do during the day.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of different things, and I think that would be a good time
So-
informally to get some more.
Yes,
information.
let's do that, and let's connect offline
Yeah.
to figure out the best way we can maximize conversation and minimize staring at a PowerPoint.
There's one other piece of information, if I can add, before we go to the audience participation. This just came out today, just so you know, and this is one of those things that's been circulating, and it was just announced today. The governor, they are going to reduce the amount of time on that the PSSAs take for their students this upcoming year. It's going to be reduced by approximately 20%. My understanding is the way they're going to do that is there are sample problems that are currently in. The kids don't know which ones they are, and the teachers don't know which one. They're not even allowed to read the questions to teachers, but no one knows which ones they are. But they're going to try to scale back on the sample problems, which will result between the math and the ELA about a 20%, science about a 20% reduction. It's in response to the pervasive commentary that's been offered about the amount of time that we're spending in testing, which when you really look at it, especially in our rural, I'll give you an example, 8th grade, there's an enormous amount, they're spending all of April in their testing in 8th grade between the different assessments. So it's welcomed by the schools.
Can you send out a, presumably we have a master calendar somewhere showing, 8th grade is testing at this time. I want to know how much time we're spending each year in these tests.
Again,
Because I know it's a lot, but I want to see because it really hits home when you see that, they're spending 4 or 5 weeks at a time.
I can send you this past year's calendar, and then
That
I
would
can
be
send
good.
you what the dates are, the windows for between the keystones, the SSAs, and stuff.
Yeah, I don't care about that as much as what we do, so just send me that. Thank you. Anything on that presentation? All right. Next up, I have faculty topics. This is how I'm styling it on the agenda for faculty when if I haven't sent out the invitation yet. I had thought about doing it today, but then thought it would be too rushed. So within the next few weeks, I want to send out an invitation to the faculty saying that you're welcome to come to the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meetings and to contribute to the conversation. So that's that. We have no public tonight. So I do, before adjourning though, reach out again to our administrators here. Anything that you want to discuss or any updates or anything. I tend to like this discussion model better than just trying to go through an agenda. And of course, Mr. Ocasnil, if you have anything either that you'd like to throw in or questions. Getting ready for the start of school, and I guess that's where all the attention is.
Right now, I'll give you a rough idea, and it's quasi-CNI. We just interviewed our last position. We have a guidance counselor position that came available about a week and a half ago, and so we just finalized our interviews today, and so we're going to be picking a candidate for that position. It is an LTS position, which is beyond the scope of this conversation, but that's what it'll be. Then we have, right now, I believe we have 1 or 2 aides that we're working on, and they're in Shelley's department, and so but we'll be up and ready to go, barring any unforeseen circumstances.
I need to say that the high school, and I'm sure this is also, it's been flexed that they've been coming in, and they're very appreciative of material support that they got from the budget. They received almost everything they needed, asked for, wanted to help get them on track. So that's not lost that you guys passed the budget that way, and that they appreciate it.
Do the high school faculty probably doesn't have iPads or whatever you got to electronic?
No, they do.
They do, okay.
They do. They had that last. Scott would speak to it better, but to get their iPads, they had to pass the in-service Apple training piece, and Scott would not give it to them until they passed their certification piece with Apple. So
Okay.
once they passed it, then we issued the iPads. That was the last day of school last year. So they have it for the summer. And then training's coming, Bob, the 23rd.
Yeah.
The 23rd, Apple will be here to do what they call iPad 101. And then in October, those 2 days will be what they call advanced Apple iPad training. So they have it. So
23rd and 24th.
What's that?
23rd and 24th.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's where we have. We'll start to grow.
Are there any big projects happening this year that may be new, maybe either in individual buildings or district-wide? I know you had the greenhouse. That's done now, right? Or is it ever done? I wonder. Do you have a greenhouse now? Or are you building a greenhouse?
He's got the nature trail, man. Come on. Jesus.
We're the pavilion.
Pavilion, excuse me. Pavilion, greenhouse. I should know better. I'm sorry. Oh,
We're supposed to have a greenhouse.
okay.
It's coming.
A little bit of a sore point.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, no, it's coming. We've run into a number of roadblocks along the way, but I think it's moving forward. It sounds like it. I'm hoping. The last I heard, I think the permits got approved from the township, but then they're trying to get the money situated for the stuff that they need and
Interesting.
bids from contractors and whatnot.
Where would this be?
What?
Where would this greenhouse be?
It's in the, if you are facing the building to the left, there's the building kind of goes in a little
Right.
bit. I don't know if you remember where the science costumes were, but there's 2 8th grade science costumes upstairs and 2 7th grade science costumes downstairs. And right outside their window, there's a grassy area. It goes in there.
Okay.
The
Interesting.
spot is done for it. It's been done since like October. It's coming.
So, but this is
And we're going to have a ribbon cutting when it's.
is this Amity Township's fault then? Just so we
No,
can make.
it's
Oh, it
not
isn't.
their fault,
So it's
no.
okay. So it's Daniel Boone's fault. Okay.
No, it's really not anyone's fault. I think it's just the people from Blazer Foundation changed,
Oh,
and
okay.
then just getting things where they needed to be, and then when the plans were drawn
Right,
up in the
okay.
beginning, it was supposed to be done in a different way, and then
So there's been
and
changes
then when
all
they
around.
started digging, then they ran into an issue, and like so it's just been one thing after another. But
Okay.
it's gonna get done.
Good. I'm looking forward to that. And we have some. Are these from the? Where are these from? Are these?
From the garden.
Okay. We have some zucchini or cucumber, and it smells like onions back here.
Hopefully
So.
next summer I will have some things to bring.
All
I
right.
can't take credit for that. Adrian
That's nice.
Evans was the one who was very thoughtful.
Well, I smelled the onions. I thought you could take credit for that, but no.
Rob, what's this? Did you have something like that?
No. Jump in. Save me.
What's the status of the intro to languages? You know, the exploratory.
The direction we received from the C&I committee was the first work on the high school curriculum, which is what we're doing right now. And then after that's complete, then we're going to revisit as a C&I committee in terms of the middle school foreign language program once the high school curriculum is out. And so right now we're on the final stages with the high school curriculum there, and then we'll take a look at that and we'll see where we're at, and obviously look at it in a balanced way with our resources as a district.
So when we're reviewing curriculum and standards, state standards specifically, how easy are those standards to interpret? Are they pretty user friendly? Okay. And where do you find them?
In Pennsylvania, if you go to the SAS website, they're there.
Okay.
There's a tab right in the SAS.
And do we treat these standards as this is the bar that we try to reach, or this is the baseline?
In my view, it's the baseline, and we try to stretch beyond that as much as we can with ourselves.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I hate to keep you all here for another hour before the meeting, but I guess you could do other things. So, or you can go home. But. All right. Anything else? Or, all right. Well, it is 6:34, and we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.